The forest stood silent and still, bathed in the ethereal glow of the setting sun. Shafts of golden light filtered through the dense canopy, casting intricate patterns on the forest floor below. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, mingling with the faint hint of impending rain. It was in this tranquil wilderness that Erica found herself seeking solace from the chaos of her college life. Erica, a young woman of indomitable spirit and unyielding determination, stood at the edge of the forest, her heart heavy with the weight of her coming finals. The stress of exams loomed large in her mind, a relentless spectre that threatened to consume her every waking thought. But amidst the towering trees and winding trails of the New Jersey woods, she found a fleeting respite from the demands of academia. With a determined stride, Erica ventured deeper into the forest, the soft crunch of fallen leaves beneath her feet echoing in the stillness of the evening. Each step brought her further from the noise and bustle of campus life, and closer to the quiet solitude she so desperately sought. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Erica felt a sense of calm wash over her, a welcome reprieve from the chaos of her everyday existence. But beneath the surface tranquility of the forest, a subtle unease lingered in the air. The rustle of leaves in the breeze took on a sinister edge, and shadows seemed to dance just beyond the reach of Erica's flashlight. A shiver ran down her spine as she pressed onward, her senses on high alert for any sign of danger lurking in the darkness. Little did she know, the true terror of the forest had only just begun to reveal itself. As Erica ventured deeper into the forest, the familiar sights and sounds of nature took on an eerie quality. Shafts of fading sunlight pierced through the dense canopy, casting long, twisted shadows that seemed to reach out and ensnare her with every step. The rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze sounded like whispers, carried on the wind, as if the forest itself were trying to communicate some dark and sinister secret. With each passing moment, Erica's unease grew, a gnawing sensation in the pit of her stomach that refused to be ignored. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched and that unseen eyes were following her every move from the depths of the underbrush. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of a branch, sent shivers coursing down her spine, raising the hairs on the back of her neck in silent warning. Despite her growing apprehension, Erica pressed on, her footsteps echoing hollowly in the stillness of the forest. The once familiar trail now seemed like an alien landscape, twisted and distorted by something unseen. Shadows danced and flickered at the edges of her vision, disappearing into the gloom before she could catch a glimpse of their elusive forms. As the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness descended like a heavy shroud, Erica's heart pounded in her chest, the sound of her own pulse drowning out the whispering voices of the forest. She quickened her pace, a desperate bid to escape the suffocating embrace of the woods, but the trail stretched on endlessly before her, a labyrinth of twisted paths and winding turns that seemed to lead nowhere but deeper into the heart of darkness. With each passing moment, Erica's sense of foreboding only intensified, a cold dread settling over her like a suffocating blanket. She knew then, with a sinking certainty, that she was not alone in the forest, that something lurked in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself at the slightest provocation. And as she plunged deeper into the darkness, she couldn't help but wonder if she would ever find her way back out again. As Erica's footsteps echoed softly against the forest floor, the once familiar sounds of nature seemed to fade into an eerie silence. The gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze takes on a sinister edge, and the rhythmic chirping of crickets is replaced by an oppressive stillness that hangs heavy in the air. A chill runs down Erica's spine as she senses something lurking in the shadows, a presence that seems to watch her every move with malevolent intent. She quickens her pace, her heart pounding in her chest as she casts furtive glances over her shoulder, half expecting to see the source of her unease lurking just beyond the edge of her vision. But the darkness remains impenetrable, shrouding whatever unseen horrors may lie hidden within its depths. As Erica presses on, the feeling of being watched intensifies, a cold knot of fear tightening in the pit of her stomach with each passing moment. Strange noises echo through the trees, the snap of twigs underfoot, and the distant hoot of an owl taking on an otherworldly quality that sends shivers down her spine. She tries to shake off her growing sense of dread, telling herself that it's just her imagination running wild in the darkness. But deep down, she knows that something is terribly wrong, that she is not alone in the forest tonight, and that whatever unseen presence is stalking her means her harm. With every step she takes, the feeling of being watched grows stronger, until it feels as though the very air around her is alive with the palpable sense of malevolence. As Erica plunges deeper into the heart of the forest, she can't shake the sinking feeling that she may never make it out alive. As Erica's footsteps echo through the forest, the darkness seems to press in around her like a suffocating blanket. Each rustle of leaves underfoot sends a shiver down her spine, and she can't shake the feeling that she's being watched. The air feels charged with an electric energy, crackling with an unseen presence that seems to lurk just beyond the reach of her senses. With each passing moment, Erica's heart pounds harder in her chest, the rhythm of her breaths ragged and uneven. Every shadow takes on a life of its own, morphing and shifting in the dim light of her flashlight. She quickens her pace, the urgency of her steps echoing through the silent forest. But the feeling of unease only grows stronger. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl cuts through the stillness, freezing Erica in her tracks. She whirls around, her breath catching in her throat as she searches the darkness for any sign of movement. But all she sees is the swaying branches of the trees, their twisted forms casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. With trembling hands, Erica fumbles for her phone, the harsh glow of the screen casting her features into sharp relief. She dials 911, her voice barely above a whisper, as she tries to explain her situation to the dispatcher. But before she can utter a single word, a deafening roar fills the air, drowning out her frantic pleas for help. Panic claws at Erica's chest as she turns to flee, her footsteps pounding a frantic rhythm against the forest floor. But no matter how fast she runs, the unseen presence seems to keep pace, its malevolent intent hanging heavy in the air. As she hurtles deeper into the heart of the forest, Erica knows that she is running out of time, and that the true horror of the night has only just begun. The forest seemed to close in around Erica, the trees looming like silent sentinels as she raced through the underbrush, her heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat echoing through the darkness. Each breath burned in her lungs, a sharp reminder of the terror that pursued her relentlessly through the night. Branches reached out like grasping fingers, tearing at her clothes and scratching her skin as she pushed herself to run faster, faster, faster still. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling of the unseen watcher's eyes upon her, its presence a looming shadow in the depths of the forest. As Erica stumbled over roots and rocks, her mind raced with fear and desperation. She could hear the creature's ragged breath just behind her, and feel the chill of its icy touch brushing against her skin. With every step, she could sense it drawing closer, its malevolent intent closing in like a vice around her throat. But still, she pressed on, driven by a primal instinct to survive at any cost. With each stride, she willed herself to go faster, to outpace the unseen horror that pursued her through the night. And as the trees thinned, and the city lights flickered into view on the horizon, Erica knew that she was almost free, almost safe from the clutches of the shadow stalker that had haunted her every step of the way. The forest was alive with the eerie glow of moonlight, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed to reach out and ensnare Erica as she stood face to face with the shadow stalker. Every nerve in her body was alight with fear, but she refused to let it consume her. Clenching her fists, she squared her shoulders and met the creature's gaze head-on, a defiant spark flickering in her eyes. The shadow stalker loomed before her, a grotesque amalgamation of darkness and evil. Its form seemed to shift and ripple, as if it were made of smoke and shadows rather than flesh and bone. Its eyes, twin orbs of burning crimson, bore into Erica's soul, filling her with a sense of dread so profound it threatened to overwhelm her. But Erica refused to back down. Drawing on every ounce of courage she possessed, she took a step forward, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart in her chest.
"You won't win!"
she declared, her words ringing out like a challenge in the stillness of the night.
"I won't let you!"
The shadow stalker hissed, a sound that sent shivers down Erica's spine and surged forward, its clawed hands outstretched as if to claim her soul. But Erica was ready. With a swift, fluid motion, she ducked beneath its grasp and lashed out with a kick, connecting solidly with its midsection. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as the shadow stalker staggered backward, its form flickering and wavering in the moonlight. And then, with a roar of rage that echoed through the forest, it lunged forward once more, teeth bared in a snarl of fury. But Erica was ready. With a defiant cry, she met the creature head-on, her fists a blur of motion as she fought tooth and nail for her survival. And as the final blow landed, sending the Shadow Stalker tumbling to the forest floor, Erica knew that she had won. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, her spirit unbroken and her resolve unwavering. Breathing heavily, Erica surveyed the scene before her, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The forest was silent once more, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the breeze. As she turned and began to make her way back to the safety of the city lights, she knew that she would never forget the night she faced the Shadow Stalker and emerged triumphant. The city streets loomed ahead, their familiar glow offering a beacon of safety in the darkness. Erica stumbled forward, her legs heavy with exhaustion, each step a struggle against the weight of her fear. The echoes of her footsteps reverberated through the empty streets, a haunting reminder of the nightmarish ordeal she had just endured. The night air hangs heavy with the weight of Erica's fear as she stumbles out of the forest and onto the deserted streets of the city. Her breath comes in ragged gasps, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest as she collapses onto the cold pavement, the sounds of her own panicked breathing echoing in her ears. As Erica lies there, trembling and exhausted, she can't shake the feeling that the nightmare is far from over. The memory of the Shadow Stalker's twisted form looms large in her mind, its malevolent presence lingering like a dark cloud over her thoughts. She knows that she has faced something unspeakable in the darkness of the woods, something that will haunt her nightmares for years to come. Slowly, tentatively, Erica pulls herself to her feet, her muscles screaming in protest as she forces herself to take a shaky step forward. The city streets are eerily quiet, devoid of the usual hustle and bustle of late-night revelers and early morning commuters. It's as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next terrifying twist in Erica's harrowing ordeal. As she begins to make her way home, Erica can't shake the feeling of being watched, of being followed by unseen eyes lurking in the shadows. Every rustle of the wind, every creak of a distant door sends a shiver down her spine, and she quickens her pace, desperate to escape the suffocating grip of fear that threatens to consume her. But as Erica rounds the corner and reaches her apartment building, she realizes with a sinking heart that her ordeal is far from over. Standing in the doorway, bathed in the sickly yellow glow of the streetlights, is the Shadow Stalker, its twisted form pulsating with malevolent energy as it beckons her forward with a clawed hand. With a cry of terror, Erica turns and flees into the night, her heart pounding in her chest as she runs blindly through the empty streets, the Shadow Stalker's mocking laughter echoing in her ears. And as she disappears into the darkness, swallowed up by the night, she knows that the true horror is yet to come, and that she may never escape the clutches of the unseen watcher that stalks her every move. The night hung heavy over New Jersey, a thick blanket of darkness cloaking the city streets in an eerie silence. Officer Jack Bennett sat behind the wheel of his patrol car, the soft glow of the dashboard casting a pale light on his weary face. His fingers tapped nervously against the steering wheel, a sense of unease gnawing at his insides. As he listened to the static crackle of the radio, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that tonight would be different somehow. And then, as if on cue, the dispatcher's voice broke through the silence, cutting through the darkness like a knife.
Dispatch to Unit 12, come in, over.
Jack's heart skipped a beat as he reached for the radio, his hand trembling slightly.
Unit 12 here, go ahead, over.
We've got a report of a possible break-in at 23 Maple Street, an abandoned house at the end of the block. Can you check it out? Over.
The hairs on the back of Jack's neck stood on end as he listened to the dispatcher's words. The abandoned house on Maple Street had a reputation, whispered about in hushed tones by the locals. It was said to be haunted, cursed by the spirits of those who had met untimely ends within its walls. But Jack was a police officer, sworn to protect and serve, and duty called. With a deep breath, he keyed the radio once more.
Copy that, dispatch. I'm on my way. Over.
The patrol car rumbled to life as Jack steered towards Maple Street. The engine's low growl echoed through the empty streets. As he drove, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of trepidation that clung to him like a shadow, growing stronger with each passing moment. The abandoned house loomed before him, a looming spectre in the darkness, its windows boarded up and its facade crumbling with decay. Jack parked the car and stepped out into the night, the chill air sending a shiver down his spine. The abandoned house stood as a silent sentinel at the end of Maple Street, its windows boarded up like blind eyes staring into the void. Officer Jack Bennett approached cautiously, his footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of dead leaves that carpeted the ground. Moonlight filtered through the skeletal branches overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced at the edge of Jack's vision. With his flashlight in hand, Jack approached the house cautiously, his footsteps echoing on the quiet street. He pushed open the creaking front door and stepped into the darkness beyond, his heart pounding in his chest. With a deep breath, Jack pushed open the creaking front door, the rusty hinges protesting with a shrill cry. The air inside was thick with dust and decay, a musty scent that clung to the walls like a shroud. Jack's flashlight pierced the darkness, its beam cutting through the gloom like a knife. The house was a study in neglect, the air heavy with the scent of mold and decay. Dust motes danced in the beam of Jack's flashlight as he moved cautiously through the rooms, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. The main floor of the house was a maze of abandoned furniture and broken belongings, the remnants of a life long forgotten. Jack moved cautiously through the debris, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. Every creak of the floorboards sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through his veins, his heart pounding in his chest like a drumbeat in the silence. But despite the eerie atmosphere, Jack saw nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to explain the disturbance that had brought him here. And yet, as he searched, the feeling of unease only grew stronger, a creeping sense of dread that seemed to coil around him like a serpent. Room by room, Jack searched, his flashlight casting long shadows that danced on the walls like specters in the night. But try as he might, he found nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to explain the disturbance that had brought him here. The house remained stubbornly silent, its secrets buried deep within its crumbling walls. With a frustrated sigh, Jack made his way to the staircase, his footsteps echoing ominously in the silence. The air grew colder with each step, a tangible sense of unease settling over him like a suffocating blanket. He climbed the stairs slowly, his hand trailing along the dusty banister for support. At the top of the stairs, Jack paused, his breath catching in his throat as he surveyed the empty hallway stretched out before him. The darkness seemed to press in from all sides, threatening to swallow him whole. But Jack was not one to back down from a challenge, especially when duty called. With resolve hardening in his heart, Jack pressed on, his flashlight leading the way as he searched each room with painstaking care. But despite his efforts, he found no trace of the intruder, no hint of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Frustration gnawed at Jack's nerves as he descended into the basement, the darkness swallowing him whole as he stepped into its icy embrace. He gripped his flashlight tightly, the only beacon of light in the inky blackness. But as he moved deeper into the basement, Jack sensed that he was not alone. There was something else down here with him, something watching, waiting, biding its time. As Jack's footsteps echoed through the darkness, the presence drew closer, its intentions as murky as the shadows that enveloped them both. With each step, Jack felt himself drawn deeper into the darkness, the shadows closing in around him like a vice. And as he descended into the basement, the air grew thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the sound of his own ragged breath. Little did Jack know, he was about to come face to face with an entity far more terrifying than any ghost or ghoul. And as he moved further into the depths of the abandoned house, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking straight into the jaws of hell. The basement was a realm of darkness, where shadows danced like malevolent spirits, mocking Officer Jack Bennett as he stood at the threshold of fear. His flashlight quivered in his hand, casting erratic beams of light that seemed to falter in the face of the consuming blackness. A cold sweat coated Jack's brow as he strained his senses, listening for the slightest whisper, the faintest rustle that would betray the presence of his unseen assailant. But the basement remained silent, save for the rhythmic thud of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. The basement loomed before Jack like a gaping maw, swallowing the feeble light of his flashlight with voracious hunger. Each step down the creaking stairs felt like a descent into the depths of his own fears, the darkness pressing in on him from all sides. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, a suffocating miasma that clung to Jack's skin like a shroud. He could feel the weight of the shadows bearing down on him, a palpable presence that seemed to coil and writhe in the darkness. As Jack reached the bottom of the stairs, the beam of his flashlight swept across the cavernous expanse of the basement, revealing row upon row of forgotten relics and discarded memories. But amidst the debris, there was something else, something sinister lurking in the shadows. A chill ran down Jack's spine as he realized he was not alone. There, in the far corner of the basement, a shapeless form seemed to materialize from the darkness itself, its outline shifting and twisting like smoke in the wind. Then, like a whisper on the wind, he heard it, the soft, insidious sound of laughter, echoing from the depths of the darkness. Jack's grip tightened on his flashlight, his knuckles white with tension as he turned to face the source of the sound. Jack's hand trembled as he tightened his grip on the flashlight, the beam faltering for a moment before steadying once more. He took a cautious step forward, his senses on high alert for any sign of movement. But the entity remained still, its form shrouded in the inky blackness, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. Jack could feel its gaze boring into him, a cold, unrelenting pressure that threatened to crush him beneath its weight. With a trembling voice, Jack called out into the darkness, his words echoing off the damp stone walls.
This is the police. Come out where I can see you,
he demanded, his heart hammering in his chest. But there was no response, save for the faint whisper of the wind as it danced through the empty corridors of the basement. Jack took another step forward, his resolve hardening with each passing moment.
I know you're there,
he said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides.
Show yourself!
Jack's breath caught in his throat as he could feel something lurking in the darkness, his mind now racing with 1,000 questions and no answers in sight. But in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer the hunter, but the hunted, in a deadly game of cat and mouse, with a foe far more sinister than anything he had ever encountered before. In the suffocating darkness of the basement, Jack's heart hammered against his ribs like a desperate plea for escape. His flashlight quivered in his trembling hand, casting erratic beams of light that danced across the walls, revealing nothing but the consuming blackness that surrounded him. With every nerve on edge, Jack strained his senses, listening for any hint of movement in the oppressive silence. Then, like a whisper on the wind, he heard it, the soft, insidious sound of footsteps echoing from the shadows. And then, with a suddenness that sent Jack reeling, the entity surged forward, its form coalescing into something tangible and terrifying. It loomed before him, a towering creature of darkness and despair, its eyes ablaze with darkened fury. There, standing before him, was the Shadow Stalker, its form shifting and writhing like tendrils of smoke in the void. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, fixated on Jack with a hunger that sent a chill down his spine. For a moment, neither moved, locked in a silent battle of wills that spanned the abyss between them. Then, with a sudden burst of movement, the Shadow Stalker lunged forward, its claws outstretched, its mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. Instinctively, Jack reached for his holster, fingers closing around the cold metal of his service weapon. With a steadying breath, he drew the gun, the weight of it familiar and comforting in his grip. But before he could react, a blur of movement lunged at him from the darkness, knocking the gun from his hand with a force that sent it skittering across the concrete floor. Jack stumbled backward, his heart lurching in his chest as he fought to regain his balance. The intensity of the Shadow Stalker was too much, its movements fluid and unpredictable as it closed in on Jack with unreal speed. Jack felt a surge of panic rising within him, threatening to overwhelm his senses as the creature bore down on him with unrelenting ferocity. Jack lunged back to regain himself. Before he could recover, the Night Stalker was upon him again, a whirlwind of claws and teeth that tore through the air with deadly precision. Jack fought back with everything he had, throwing punches and kicks in a desperate bid to keep the creature at bay. But the Night Stalker was relentless, its attacks coming faster and fiercer with each passing moment. Jack felt a searing pain slice through his side as the creature's claws tore through his uniform, leaving deep gashes in their wake. Gritting his teeth against the agony, Jack fought through the pain, summoning every ounce of strength and determination he had left. With a primal roar, he launched himself at the Night Stalker, driving it back with a ferocity born of desperation. For a moment, the basement became a battleground, a clash between light and darkness, as Jack and the Night Stalker were intertwined in a struggle for survival. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Jack saw an opportunity, a flicker of weakness in the creature's form, a momentary lapse in its relentless assault. Jack's instincts kicked into overdrive as he dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the Shadow Stalker's grasp. He swung his flashlight like a weapon, the beam of light slicing through the thick skin, if the stalker with a deadly precision. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Jack had found an opportunity. A flicker of weakness in the Shadow Stalker's form, a momentary lapse in its relentless assault. With renewed determination, he pressed his advantage, driving the Night Stalker back with a fierce resolve. The beam of light seared the stalker's skin like a vampire under a scorching summer sun. With a newfound resolve, Bennett pressed towards the Night Stalker. With each swipe of the flashlight, he put the skulking creature through anguish and pain. The creature, now injured and vulnerable, withdraws frantically into the dark corners of the cellar. Behind it, a trail of dark fog filled the space and covered its retreat. And then, moments later, the fog receded, evaporating into the ether-like mist in the morning sun. Jack stood relieved and bewildered, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he surveyed the basement, now bathed in the warm glow of his flashlight. As Officer Jack Bennett ascended the creaking stairs from the basement, his mind reeled with disbelief. The events of the past moment seemed surreal, like a nightmare from which he had just awakened from. He could not shake the thought that what he had just experienced was too horrifying to be real. Blood seeped from the wounds on his side, staining his uniform with crimson reminders of the battle he had fought in the darkness below. Each step he took sent a jolt of pain shooting through his body, a harsh reminder of the price he had paid for survival. As he reached the top of the stairs and stepped out into the cool night air, Jack was met with a flood of blinding light and the sound of voices calling out to him. Backup had arrived, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope. But Jack's relief was short-lived, as his strength began to wane, his vision blurring and his limbs growing heavy with exhaustion. He stumbled forward, his legs threatening to give out beneath him until finally, he collapsed onto the dew-covered grass of the front yard. As darkness crept in at the edges of his vision, Jack's gaze drifted to the bushes to his left, where he saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him, a silent reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows. For a moment, Jack and the Night Stalker locked eyes, their gazes meeting in a silent exchange of understanding. And then, with a shiver that sent a chill down Jack's spine, the creature vanished into the night, leaving behind nothing but the echo of its presence. As consciousness slipped away, Jack was left with a lingering sense of unease, a nagging doubt that whispered of shadows yet unseen. And as darkness claimed him, he knew that the battle was far from over, that the Night Stalker still lurked in the shadows, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. "1960s New York. The city streets on this night were a whisper of its parallel. The deafening silence of empty streets and deserted sidewalks provided the perfect opportunity for Nick Rancière and his partner in crime. With masks concealing their identities and tools tucked securely in their waistbands, they slipped through the shadows like phantoms, their eyes fixed on their target, the grandiose facade of the First National Bank. Nick's pulse quickened with anticipation as they approached the imposing building, its marble columns gleaming in the glow of the streetlights. He could feel the weight of the stolen money pressing against his chest, a tantalizing reminder of the riches that awaited them inside. With a silent nod, Nick and his partner circled around to the rear of the bank, their tools raised and ready to silently infiltrate the building. The air crackled with tension as they penetrated the first obstacle separating them from life-changing wealth. Access to the vault was now within their grasp.
"The coast is clear. Let's go,"
Nick whispered, his voice silent as a mouse. The bank, a mere tomb in comparison to its lively juxtaposition during the day, echoed their footsteps across the darkened halls as they approached the corridor housing the vault. With practiced ease, Nick's partner examined the vault door, while Nick carefully prepared the tools for use, his mind fixed on what awaited them beyond the vault door. With the true precision of a cat burglar, Nick's partner carried out a sequence of techniques, and within moments, a satisfying click. The vault door swung open, revealing row upon row of gleaming cash stacked neatly on shelves. Nick's heart raced as he stepped inside the vault, his fingers itching to grasp the riches that lay before him. He filled his bag with bundles of cash, his senses overwhelmed by the intoxicating scent of money and the thrill of the heist. But as he turned to leave, a sudden realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. The sound of sirens was fast approaching in the distance. They had missed something. The police would be on their tail soon, and they needed to make their escape before it was too late. With one last glance at the vault, Nick and his partner made a hasty retreat, disappearing into the night with their ill-gotten gains in tow. As they vanished into the shadows, the echoes of their daring heist lingered in the air, a testament to their audacity and a warning to all who dared to stand in their way. The sirens wail in the distance, a cacophony of sound that echoes through the deserted streets of New York City. Nick Rancier's heart pounds in his chest as he darts through the labyrinthine alleyways, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he clutches the stolen money tightly to his chest. The dim glow of streetlights casts long shadows across the pavement, illuminating Nick's path with pools of eerie light. But as he races through the narrow passages, he can't shake the feeling that he's being watched, that unseen eyes are tracking his every move from the darkness. With each passing moment, the weight of the stolen money grows heavier, a constant reminder of the danger that lurks behind him. Nick's mind races with thoughts of escape, of disappearing into the night and leaving the authorities far behind. And then, like a beacon in the darkness, he sees it, the sprawling expanse of Central Park, its towering trees casting long shadows against the moonlit sky. Without hesitation, Nick veers off course, his feet pounding against the pavement as he makes a beeline for the sanctuary of the park. His accomplice strides ahead of him, did not notice Nick's detour. They would never again reunite. As Nick crosses the threshold into Central Park, a dark chill washes over him, a primal instinct warning him of the dangers that lie within. But Nick pushes aside his fears, his desperation driving him forward into the unknown depths of the park to escape the approaching police presence. The air is thick with the scent of earth and vegetation, a stark contrast to the stale city air he left behind. The sound of his footsteps echoes through the silence, mingling with the rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. But despite the tranquility of the night, Nick can't shake the feeling that he's not alone, that unseen eyes are watching his every move from the shadows. He quickens his pace, his senses on high alert as he navigates the winding pathways of Central Park. And then, as he rounds a corner and disappears into the dense foliage, he hears it, the faint whisper of something moving in the darkness, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing through the trees. A chill runs down Nick's spine as he realizes that he is being pursued, that the darkness of Central Park holds secrets far more cryptic than he ever imagined. But even as fear grips his heart, he presses on, his only thought now to escape the clutches of whatever lurks in the shadows before it's too late. The night enveloped Nick Rancier like a suffocating cloak, the darkness of Central Park swallowing him whole as he ventured deeper into its labyrinthine pathways. The glow of the city lights faded into obscurity, leaving him surrounded by an oppressive silence broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Each step echoed through the stillness, a stark reminder of his solitude in the heart of the park. Nick's heart pounded in his chest, a steady rhythm of fear that seemed to grow louder with every passing moment. He could not shake the feeling that he was being watched, and that unseen eyes followed his every move from the shadows. As he navigated the winding paths, the dense foliage seemed to close in around him, casting eerie shapes and shadows that danced in the moonlight. The air grew thick with an oppressive sense of dread, each breath tasting of fear and uncertainty. Whispers seemed to echo through the trees, soft and insidious, like the murmurings of unseen spectres. Nick's pulse quickened, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs sent a shiver down his spine, his imagination running wild with visions of what lurked in the darkness. Despite his growing unease, Nick pressed on, driven by a desperate need to escape the clutches of the law and enjoy his newly obtained riches. But with every step, the feeling of being pursued grew stronger, a relentless presence that dogged his every move. Suddenly, a chill swept through the air, causing Nick to stop dead in his tracks. He strained his ears, listening for any hint of movement in the oppressive silence. And then, faintly at first, he heard it, the sound of footsteps, soft and stealthy, creeping around in the darkness ahead. Panic surged through Nick's veins as he realized that he was not alone in the park. He turned on his heels, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he scanned the shadows for any sign of his pursuer. But there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of the night and the whispering of the wind through the trees. With a trembling hand, Nick reached for his gun, his fingers closing around the cold metal of the weapon. But as he drew it from its holster, a sudden gust of wind extinguished the flickering flame of his courage, leaving him vulnerable and exposed in the darkness. As fear tightened its grip around his heart, Nick knew that he was in a fight for his life, a battle against unseen forces that lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike when least expected. As he stood alone in the heart of Central Park, surrounded by darkness and uncertainty, he knew that the night held secrets far more terrifying than anything he could have ever imagined. The darkness of Central Park enveloped Nick like a suffocating shroud, its depths concealing unseen terrors that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Every rustle of leaves and whisper of wind sent a shiver down his spine, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, hunted by something far more sinister than anything he had encountered before. As Nick cautiously navigated the winding pathways, his senses on high alert, he suddenly froze in his tracks. An overwhelming fear took grasp of him. There, emerging from the shadows like a spawn of death, was the Night Stalker, a dark and formless creature that seemed to defy logic. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, fixated on Nick with a hunger that sent a primal terror coursing through his veins. Nick's breath caught in his throat as he stared into the abyss of the creature's gaze, unable to tear his eyes away from its haunting visage. With a guttural growl, the Night Stalker lunged forward, its movements fluid and graceful, like a predator stalking its prey. With a scream of terror, Nick turned and fled, the bag of stolen money in tow as he raced through the maze of trees and bushes. But the lion was relentless, its powerful muscles propelling it forward with terrifying speed. Nick felt the Night Stalker's hot breath on his neck as it closed the distance between them, its razor-sharp claws slashing through the air with deadly precision. Desperation clawed at Nick's chest as he scrambled backward, his heart pounding in his ears. He knew he had to find a way to escape, to survive this harrowing encounter, and make it out of the park alive. But as the Night Stalker closed in, its presence looming larger with each passing second, Nick felt the tendrils of darkness closing in around him, threatening to consume him whole. Panic surged through Nick's veins as he realized the futility of his efforts, the realization sinking in that he was hopelessly outmatched against this supernatural foe. With every passing moment, the Night Stalker gained the upper hand, its shadowy form twisting and contorting in the darkness. Panic surged through him as he realized the danger he was in, but before he could react, the lion lunged forward with a roar that shook him to his core. Nick's instincts kicked into overdrive as he attempted to fight back, but his blows seemed to pass through the creature as if it were made of smoke. He tried to endure his assault, to fend off the beast with whatever strength he had left, but his efforts were futile against the ferocity of the attack. As the Night Stalker's jaws closed around him, Nick felt a searing pain shoot through his body, his screams drowned out by the roar of the beast. He thrashed and struggled, but it was no use. His fate was sealed. In a final, desperate bid for survival, Nick summoned every ounce of strength and courage he had left and kicked at the Night Stalker with a primal scream of defiance. But as their forms collided in a whirlwind of darkness and despair, Nick knew that this battle was over, that the true horrors of the night had only just begun. In the end, all that remained was the bag of stolen money, lying abandoned in the darkness, and a puddle of Nick's blood staining the ground. The Night Stalker disappeared back into the shadows with his body, leaving behind only silence and the echoes of a life cut short by the unforgiving cruelty of the night. The dawn breaks over Central Park, casting a soft golden light across the dew-covered grass and the towering trees that line the pathways. Joggers and dog walkers begin to fill the park, their laughter and chatter breaking the silence of the early morning hours. But amidst the bustle of activity, there is a sense of unease lingering in the air, a feeling of something sinister lurking just beneath the surface. A jogger, his footsteps echoing against the pavement, stumbles upon a trail of blood leading into the heart of the park. His heart pounding with a mixture of curiosity and dread, he follows the crimson trail, each step bringing him closer to the truth behind the mysterious disappearance of Nick Rancière. The stolen money lies abandoned at the end of the trail, bundles of cash scattered haphazardly on the ground as if discarded in a moment of haste. The jogger's pulse quickens as he realizes the gravity of the situation. He knows he should alert the authorities, but a part of him hesitates, as if afraid to delve deeper into the darkness that surrounds him. As he stands there, frozen in indecision, the whisper of the wind carries the faintest echo of a name: Nick Rancière. a name that sends a shiver down his spine. He glances around nervously, half expecting to see the shadowy figure of the Night Stalker lurking in the shadows, watching his every move. But the park remains eerily quiet, the only sound the rustle of leaves in the breeze and the distant hum of city life beyond the trees. With a final glance at the abandoned money, the jogger turns and hurries from the park, leaving behind the whispers in the shadows and the unanswered questions that linger in the air. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the deserted pathways, Central Park remains a silent witness to the mysteries that lie hidden within its depths. And as the day fades into night, the whispers grow louder, echoing through the darkness as a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurk in the shadows. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deserted pathways of Central Park, the air grew thick with an eerie stillness. The fading light painted the park in shades of deep purple and indigo, lending an otherworldly quality to the landscape. Amidst the creeping darkness, the Night Stalker watched from the shadows, its form shifting and twisting like a wisp of smoke in the wind. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, fixated on the unsuspecting visitors who wandered through the park, oblivious to the dangers that lurked in the darkness. Whispers lingered in the air, a haunting melody that echoed through the trees and bounced off the stone walls of the surrounding buildings. They were the whispers of the night, the echoes of fear and despair that reverberated through the empty pathways of Central Park. As the Night Stalker crept through the shadows, its hunger unsated and its thirst for blood unquenched, the whispers grew louder, swelling into a cacophony of sound that filled the night air with a chilling intensity. They were a warning, a reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkness, waiting to strike when least expected. But still, the visitors to Central Park remained oblivious to the danger that surrounded them, their laughter and chatter mingling with the whispers of the night. They strolled hand in hand, lost in their own little worlds, unaware of the malevolent presence that watched their every move from the shadows. And as the night wore on, and the whispers grew louder, the Night Stalker bided its time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. For in the darkness of Central Park, where the shadows danced and the echoes of fear lingered, no one was truly safe from the horrors that lurked in the night.